video recording.
Yeah.
We will be publishing this video to upload to the YouTube channel on Taipei Ethereum channel. So Chen Ping is the founder of Hakka Finance. He's done a lot of things, and he's also the founder of Palace. So I thought you were going to talk about zero knowledge proofs, and I turned out something wrong.
Okay. Isn't that the topic?
But this topic is perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so take it away.
I think Chen may be
The best person
the
to
best.
talk to.
Yeah.
Maybe next time. Maybe
Okay.
next time we'll talk about zero knowledge proofs.
Okay, so my topic is a new product of Hakka Finance.
Okay.
这样吗？大家看清楚吗？ So it's our new project, and we named it iGain, which stands for Impermanent Gain, and it's the opposite of impermanent loss, and it belongs to Hakka Finance. And this is me. I'm Chen. I'm the founder of Palace and Hakka Finance, and I have roughly 4.5 years experience in developing blockchain stack, especially Ethereum. Yeah. So the topic is basically a solution of the impermanent loss of being the liquidity provider of so-called automated market maker, or maybe the most famous name is Uniblock. So there's no difference between being a market maker on Uniswap or a traditional market maker in terms of how they profit and what's the risk. So when you want to be a market maker, you need to have a good strategy to place buy and sell orders in order to make some profit. So the potential profit of being a market maker is basically the spread between the buy and sell orders you place. And the risk, of course, is that if the market price fluctuates a lot, then you might get some net loss. And due to this reason, we don't see traditional finance have a good cooperation between professional market maker and individual, or say laymen, because there's some you may call the management problem between the fund owner and the manager. Because if you get lost, then you might blame the market maker. So traditionally, we don't see the layman being market maker because it's too risky for them, and they can't just trust the manager to take care of them. But in blockchain, we have a cool stuff called Impermanent, which has a predetermined strategy of being market maker. So when you provide liquidity to such a market making product, then it shows that you agree with the potential loss. So it's a good invention because this kind of mechanism eliminates the requirement of trust. Like when you deposit, then it seems that you agree with the potential loss. But then we get some new problems with this kind of market making mechanism, which we call it impermanent loss. And it's basically due to that this kind of automated mechanism are quite inflexible, which means it's pretty easy for outside behavior to arbitrage against that kind of market making strategy. So when you are being liquidity provider of Uniswap, you'll get a special kind of loss called impermanent loss, which is, I think it is the function of price change. Yeah. So in Uniswap, if you want to be a market maker, you have to have 50%, 50% of two kind of currency, and you provide liquidity to become a liquidity provider of that to that pair. So compare with not being a market maker, if you are just holding two kind of currency, and to make it a simple question, we assume the one side of that pair is a stable coin like US dollar, and the other side is another coin which could have price change, for example, ETH. So since one is fixed and the other one fluctuates, you can draw a function like the red line, which is assume one kind of currency is not having price change, and the other one, let's say, is have price fluctuation. Then the total position may have a net value due to the price of this change. So let's say if the price of this down to 0, then you'll have 50% value of the original position, because the stablecoin part is not dropping, it's remains the same. And if the price of this goes up, then you're going to have like half of the price rise, because only 50% of your position is, and the other one is stable. But if you are depositing those two currencies into Uniswap, being the liquidity provider, then the actual payoff will be the blue line. And as you can see, it's always worse than just holding that two kind of currency. And as I mentioned, the reason is mainly because by being such a liquidity provider of Uniswap, it's quite inflexible, and people can arbitrage from you when there's price difference. So let's say the price goes up, then it turns out that people will use stablecoin to buy away your ETH, which is more valuable. So you'll get a net loss between just holding. And a straightforward solution of this could be hedging the price change of the non-stable currency. So let's say you deposit your coins into Uniswap, you are being the liquidity provider of US dollar and ETH, and at the same time you short the same position of ETH. Then the payoff will change to become like this, the red one. And as you can see, it's still not so good, because it's not on this line. You are eventually still suffering from some new type of loss, and that's what we call impermanent loss. So it's an extra loss from the capital P&L. And the formula of impermanent loss will look like this. So as you can see, it's not so symmetric, but you say isomorphic. But when the price drops or when the price raises, you will both suffer from this kind of loss. So we propose a solution of this called iGain, impermanent gain, and basically it's a kind of synthetic asset. And the beauty of synthetic asset is that since it is not a real asset, so you can have merely uh, arbitrary payoff and have some arbitrary formula, and that makes things very flexible. Since you can find a counterparty to form a contract like this, then any kind of problem can be solved because you transfer the risk to your counterparty instead of try to fix it. So you can simply compare the formula of iGain and IL, and you'll find out it's quite the same, but upside down. So the concept of holding iGain token is basically holding a hash of IL. So if you hold one IG, it should perfectly offset the impermanent loss of, let's say, the same position of liquidity provider token. So previously, the payoff of being the liquidity provider of, let's say, Uniswap, first, of course, you'll get some swap fee, which come from the spread. So you can call it whatever. And since Uniswap is doing some liquidity mining stuff, so you'll get some extra profit for mining reward, which is the governance token for Uni token. And of course, you'll suffer from capital loss if the price of it drops, or maybe you can get some profit if the price of it breaks. And at the end, you'll have an extra loss for impermanent loss. And since we have iGain now, if you also want to be a liquidity provider of this and DAI on Uniswap, you'll still have this, and this. But if you buy the iGain token at the very beginning, then you'll pay some premium, and then that will offset all the impermanent loss. So theoretically, this and this would be the same. But since this is determined and this has some uncertainty, so we believe people might want to have some this kind of asset to make the liquidity providing more certain. So the whole process will be like this. First, since it's a binary synthetic asset, it of course needs to have a counterparty to take both risk and premium. So in our model, we are going to have, let's say, A token and B token. And B token stands for iGain, which is the tokenized asset of the opposite of impermanent loss. So we can say the hedge of impermanent loss. And then A will be the counterpart. So at any time, the value of 1A plus 1B will equals to $1 because it's predetermined. And then there will be a liquidity provider of AMB token. So the process will be you need to mint out 1A and 1B token simultaneously to make the A and B token position balanced. But you can swap A against B or B against A to have a pure long or short position. And then when the period ends, then they will come to a settlement process. So you'll get the price data from oracle to calculate the price change, the percentage of price change, and then get how large is the permanent loss, then set the price of A and B. And at the same time, all A and B token holders can settle down the net value of the position and withdraw out. So here's some data I get from the price log website. I get from the last year and compare it every 30 days. So since 1 year have 365 days, I have 335 data points. So I compare the price change for each 30 days and then get the price ratio and then get the impermanent loss. And surprisingly, the average monthly IO is quite low. It's about 1.18%. And it has like 1.5% of standard deviation. That's a little bit big, but the maximum of the monthly internal loss is like around 8.8%. It's still not so high. Yeah, so it could be pretty reasonable to set to forecast the price of the like about 1 or 2%. But of course, since this is like a sort of a kind of option, so at the beginning of the quarter, we will have some premium. So I'll say like maybe 2 or 3%, 0.02 to 0.03 will be a quite fair price of the beginning in the beginning of the quarter to the new quarter. Yeah. But the model still has some issues to be fixed. The first one is the capital efficiency. Because currently the iGain model don't have leverage, so we need to deposit $1 to have 1A and 1B, so for one position, and that would be very capital consuming. But since we want to make it as a decentralized finance project, so we cannot make it a trust-based. So of course we need to make it fully collateralized. And the second one is liquidity issue. Because we use another ANN model to form the market of iGain, and that ANN model itself will have some IO again. So we make it a recursive problem fail. Yeah, which is not so good. Yeah. So first, I think we need to introduce the leverage factor into this model. Because as I mentioned, the average IO is about 1 point something percent. It's quite low comparing with $1. Yeah, so let's say maybe setting 10x leverage would be a good idea. Yeah. So before we'll have a payoff like this, the price of P should be the same as the value of iGain. So if the IO is 0, then the price of P will be settled to 0. And if it's 1, then it will be 1. Vice versa. And since we can set a 10 times leverage to the value of P, it will be raised to $1 when the value of IG is the the same or larger than 10%. So in this model, there will be some kind of possibility that we cannot offset the whole loss if iGain gets higher than let's say 10%. So from this one, from the value after 0.1, then the price of the raising is capped at $1. But this will make the whole model more technical. So you can use $1 to make the $10 position to offset. And the second problem of iGain will be the risk of being a liquidity provider. So let's say market making problem. Because like I think Ogre and Open and Uma are all suffering from this kind of problem. They said they themselves have to be the liquidity provider of their option, and that costs them a lot of money because it's always lose gain. So only the project owner would like to be the liquidity provider. Yeah, that's not sustainable. Like,
what do you mean by always lost? It's always lost.
Like there's two interesting behavior of the price of option. The first one is it fluctuates a lot. Like when you buy the option, comparing with buying the spot. Let's say you buy ETH and you buy an option of ETH. The price change of the option will be always larger than ETH itself. Because the payoff is quite strong. So this one is already not so friendly to being liquidity provider. And the second one is the price of option should drop over time. Like let's say you want to buy a call option of ETH, and if there's the same term, let's say maybe the price is 400 and you're buying a call option at let's say 500, but the time period, the time window, 1 day and maybe let's say 1 month or 1 year, they'll have different price. So the price of each raise above 500 in 1 day is not so possible. But in 1 year, that's pretty possible. So since they have this different possibility, the price of option will be different. So being the liquidity provider of option will suffer because the price of that tokenized option is always dropping over time. So you yourself being the liquidity provider of the option will lead to loss. So I say it's like always lose gain for being a liquidity provider. Yeah. So the approach we propose is to make a dynamic fee. Like in Uniswap, is the fee of swapping is set to 30 points, which is 0.3%. It's set, it's fixed. And we propose to make a function of fee to be raising over time. So you start from maybe the same 30 points, but raising over time to 30%. So by doing so, and we can visualize it into the order book, then there will be having a little spread at the beginning, having a much larger spread in the end. So that can, I'm not sure, but I hope that can somehow protect the liquidity provider. So there's a larger spread, so it's harder for outside people to arbitrage against the liquidity provider. that that somehow makes sense because when you are owning an option, you might not need to sell it because you can just hold it to the end of the quarter and then get the price settled. There's no liquidity issue after settlement. So hope that makes sense. I think that's all for today. Thanks for your attention. Any question?
Two questions. So one is, so this IL and IT concept, are there any corresponding concepts? Like what are the in traditional finance world? Do they correspond to something? These types of mechanics, because there are market makers and stuff in traditional financial markets, so it's just some correspondence there.
I think no, because as I mentioned, the price of iGain is the opposite of IL. And since it's not so symmetric, which means like rise and fall have different IL. Yeah, so it's quite new. Because we don't have such a formula before in traditional finance field. We have like a price change option in traditional finance, but they are symmetric. But in this case, we have a new definition of that the value, the settled value of that kind of significance.
Wait, are you asking for the traditional financial systems? Or
I'm asking if this, of course, if there's an existing concept, but if that's symmetrical, it's different. So, and the second question I had was, maybe doesn't, but like the example the Uniswap health token, is there any correlation between that and IL?
Excuse me?
Is there any correlation between the price of the mining reward token and IL? Or is that not good?
No, because IL can be defined by the price change itself. Yeah, so it's not like an insurance of the whole position profit and loss. It's a synthetic asset and its price is merely based on the price change of our target. Let's say it's
You say that you say that you can build impermanent gain on another impermanent gain product, and you say it's like a recursive.
Recursive hell.
Yeah. Is it really like the impermanent loss problem will exacerbate you build on top of it, or the impermanent loss problem alleviates when you build on top of it?
I believe yes, because if the underlying token is ETH and we got IL, due to the statistics, it's not quite high. But since the price of ID might fluctuate even more, so I assume building another IG on top of that won't solve the problem.
any other questions relating to this topic in Islam or just DeFi project in general?
As question in English, maybe. French?
Swedish is
Really?
yeah.
I can.
Sorry. Right. Can you say how to replicate the curve of impermanent gain in the contract?
Oh, you mean the formula?
Yeah. Do you need?
I asked Google for it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's like a Reddit post or something showing the formula, and the input is the price ratio of the before and after. So any kind of arbitrary pair, if you can record, if you can report the price before and after, then you can calculate the IO of that pair.
Oh,
So is this already launched?
No, not yet.
When is it going to be launched?
Soon, pretty much.
Maybe the next 2 months.
Maybe next month. I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also question, is your model relate to the wallet, trading wallet, considered your model?
No.
Then what?
Only the pricing. I mean, yeah, of course you can obtain any other parameters and maybe calculate other payoffs, but that will make it a totally different product. But if you want to hedge against the whole position of your liquidity provider share, then you need to consider price change and the fee generated, and also maybe the mining reward. But first, that will make things a little bit too complicated. And second, I assume people buying iGain to merely offset IL and then still capture the value of swap fee and mining reward.
So your target market will be those
Miners,
account holders
the liquidity
for
miners
both sides
on Uniswap.
and almost the same value.
Yes. Any more questions?
So I think we can take a break and then people can ask you more questions during the break.
Sure.
So Pete says coming from a computer science background. And
No.
But you know a lot about open source projects and not complex like he's getting models right now. So yeah. So we're going to take a break. The next stop is
Thank you.
Yeah.